Anthony Flynn, welcome to the In the Know. Great to see you in person.
Yeah, likewise.
Really
We've
good.
talked for ages, haven't we? Email, telephone, first time we met today.
And isn't it so good to meet in person as well?
Yeah.
And it's weird. So when you first met me, were you expecting me to be a bit taller, shorter, wider?
But as a slightly smaller man, yes, I was disappointed that you were also a slightly smaller man. So it's funny, isn't it, how you build up the image of people that you haven't met in person. And then you meet them in person. But no, there's no disappointment yet. But we're only 30 seconds.
I was going to say, yeah, give me a chance. But sure. For the audience, 5'8" 3/4, just in case you were a bit worried. But great to see you anyway.
Yeah, likewise.
The reason we're having a conversation is probably a shared interest in human behaviour and also how that is impacting within financial planning. And I think this is really understanding the sort of messy behaviour of humans. So if we can unpick this and looking at it from a financial planning lens, I think that will be really interesting. But who knows where we're going to go, because it's a shared interest and we humans are strange to say the least.
We are.
But a good starting point is always your journey. It's so corny to say that phrase, your journey, your sort of way to financial planning. But for the people that don't know you, Anthony, let's find out a bit more about you.
Journey to financial planning. Like many people, to be honest, it was you kind of fall into it. I left school at 16, so just after GCSEs. I started at college for a short period, but wasn't very well. Had to leave and was told basically, don't come back because you'll never catch up. Just wait till the next season or next year and then start again. My personal situation at the time was such that just wasn't an option, and we needed to earn some money. It was me, my mum, and my little brother. So didn't do college, didn't do uni. My first actual job, paid job, was at Lund Poly. So you will remember the travel agency.
Travel agent, yeah. I've not heard that for years.
Yeah. So that's out there now, Lund Poly. As a youth trainee.
Yeah.
That was a weird scenario. So we won't go into that because it was just a very long time ago. But what ended up happening is I interviewed for a job in admin for AXA. So like a lot of people, you go through the big insurers. They take on a lot of people, don't they? And I remember walking in for the interview, and I'd always had this thing about wanting to wear a suit, I think. And I walked in, and it was a proper office, not a shop. And I was like, yes, I am the man. I've made this.
I'm here.
Yeah. And this was 1997, so going back a fair distance. The true story, which I don't think many people know, is that I was working in pensions admin. I covered some of the pensions review, or the SIB review, as older people will know it as. And part of that was also processing people's retirement quotes. And some people watching this will know at the bottom of all the quotes was always the commission disclosure. And I remember thinking, honest, true story, gee, they're not doing anything and they're earning like £2,000 commission. Why can't I do that? So in a roundabout kind of way, I went off and did my exams at the time. So FPCs as it was, and I first qualified 2001. My first proper advice job, I think you could call it, would be Edward Jones, which was the American.
Yeah. I remember those coming over, yeah.
It was brutal. It was brutal because the model works in America, who are just very different people, generally speaking, and much more in tune with finance than you might imagine. But the Edward Jones model at the time was, in any given community, you'd have like the bank manager, the doctor, the Edward Jones representative, the headmaster, that kind of thing. And it was all centered around these pivotal people. And so in America, that really works. And it's door knocking, which some people might not realize.
Yeah.
And it's pot luck, I think. If you happen to live in an affluent area, you can knock on doors and the people that answer have got some money. And if you don't live in an affluent area and you knock on doors, you're knocking on doors of people that have no money. And you're selling shares. You're selling Vodafone shares or General Motors bonds, etc., etc. It was a year of my life I won't ever get back. I suppose it taught me some things. Maybe we'll come on to some of that. But really, it inspired me to then get what I would call a more obvious planning job, and that was for Chase de Vere back in the day. telephone based.
Oh.
Yeah. So it amazed me at the time, actually, how much trust you can instill in somebody just by talking to them on the telephone. If I think about it now, it just doesn't make any sense that people who never met you would send you, not you're sending an investment company some money via you. But it was a great start. And in fact, I'm still friends with some of the people. We had a good cohort, actually, one of whom I'm still working with now. So that was the first foray into advice. And then I guess the most relevant was a long stint at Investec, which I think is probably where me and other James first started talking, I think.
Yeah, correct.
2013. That was probably my most enjoyable and also least enjoyable phase of my career. Those of you watching who know me will know when I started there was very little advice. It was by every measure an investment company that had a small bit of advice. And particularly in the office I was based at, which was Cheltenham, there was no FP infrastructure whatsoever. So no revenue, no clients, no anything. And I can condense 10 years into 30 seconds and just say over the years, we built an extremely strong team, Southwest focused. And I managed a lot of people across a number of offices and grew that function very well. That takes us to 2022.
Okay, it does indeed. Let's just circle back. Edward Jones, door knocking. I think within financial planning, there is still an element where there is fear overselling anyway. But what did you learn through the early stages of your career, which helped you then when you're at Investec?
I think it's true to say you learn some resilience. I was really young, and I think irrespective of job role, if you can bring your life experience into whatever your job you're doing at the time, that stands you in a much better stead. Nevertheless, you've got to be somewhat resilient to walk down somebody's path, knock on the door, get absolutely abused, because you're really invading somebody's private space. And as you say, in England, you can't do it now, of course, but even then there was a real stigma around door knocking. But you'd walk up, they'd answer the door, they'd tell you to F off, and then you walk back down the path, and then you walk a meter this way and you walk down the next path because the doors are next to each other.
Wow.
And you've still got somebody there and you've got to knock on that door. And you weren't allowed to finish until you had, I think it was 25 names. So to the point where you'd had a conversation enough that they were willing to give you their name. You had their address, of course. And then each night you then hand wrote them a letter to say thanks for allowing me to introduce myself to you today. Wow. And you had to keep going until you had 25.
And what would be the issue if you didn't have 25? Would the boss be on your back saying, get back out?
Yeah. Yeah, I know we'll come on to this, but there is that sense within that organisation that it is a numbers game. And a lot of people still fall for that. There is this belief that the more doors you knock, literally or metaphorically, the more successful you're likely to be. And I have come to believe that to not be true.
Yeah. I think that resilience is, I know that's played a part recently. So we'll come on to that.
Okay.
Okay, moving to Investec, the toughest time and the happiest time, people will be thinking, well, what happened? And I know you can't share everything, but what can you share with regards to the exit and where you went post Investec?
Yeah, I can certainly share that it was not an enjoyable experience. And even though it ended up being the right thing to do, at the time I really didn't want to. I didn't want to leave. But it was necessary to leave. And I don't mind sharing that from then, even until fairly recently, it's been a real challenge to find myself again. And this is not, I don't want this to be a really depressing episode where people are like, oh shit, will you just stop going on about it? But there will be other people that go through something similar. What I think it comes down to, and again, I've learned this over the last few years, is there's people derive such a sense of comfort of being able to predict the future. So the future you think, or the path you think you're going down, brings a real sense of comfort if you're not already generally comfortable. And when that gets taken or changed, it can really set people off. And that's what happened to me. Because what happens is you go back and you think, was it all bollocks? Like, was everything that I thought we achieved, was it not?
Not real.
Was it not real?
Yeah.
And would it have happened without me? And this has become a lesson in external validation as being problematic. If your sense of worth is coming from external factors or other people, and those change because they will, you're left with potentially nothing. And that's quite a dangerous place to find yourself in.
Let's go a bit deeper into that thing. I find this interesting.
Deeper.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because I find this fascinating because I think it will resonate with people. The definition of success, the perception of success. I think a lot of people out there are trying to find purpose, trying to find balance, and there are certain perceptions out there. So stories like this will resonate. And I think, knowing you as I have done for the last few years, I think this has been a sort of a deep reflection. So tell me about that sort of reflective piece then. What did you go through? What have you learned? What techniques have you sort of used to process this as well? Because it was a huge shift.
It was. Thank you for recognizing it and being sensitive to that. It's interesting, and I'm not knocking you. And one of the reasons I've been really keen to come on here is because it is clear you are willing and able to go to a deeper level than a lot of other people. I've had friends go on podcasts and they say how the host is just very kind of singular dimensional, and the agenda is yours and not the guests. And I know that's different here. So if I pick up something you say, I mean it totally respectfully. And you talk about techniques, and I think actually techniques is possibly the wrong way to think about healing, progressing, all of those kind of things, because it's symptomatic of people wanting, well, the symptoms of things as opposed to understanding the causes of things. And there's this sense, and I get this from having mentored and trained and developed people in my past and sort of doing a bit now, is their mindset is very typically, what do I need to do in order to achieve this thing? And really it's a point of reframing to say, who do I need to be for those things to be the natural byproduct? Does that make sense?
Absolute spot on.
So we can dig into the symptoms and causes thing, particularly around confidence, which I know we're going to talk about, and composure and all those sorts of things. But I'm all about now anyway, understanding the symptoms so that the outcome you want is just a natural byproduct of who you are.
I mean, by all means, pick up on anything that I say and tell me I'm talking, bollocks. Absolutely fine.
I'll kick you under the table.
Most people do. Your legs aren't long enough.
No. Oh,
you'll have to stretch. I think I had this conversation with somebody yesterday, and they said to me, are you living in your head or are you living in the real world? And that sort of goes back to what you're saying, that it's not really about hacks or technique. It's more about understanding who you are.
Yeah.
And that's very much where I am as a person, which is why these conversations are interesting to me, because it's like a therapy session.
Yeah.
But I also think many other people are thinking about the same thing as well. So where do we want to take this conversation now then? So you went through that reflective process. Okay. And now
reflective process is is like a fancy way of saying a bit of a nightmare and a real kind of self-destruct.
How tough was it? At what level were you? If you can go a little bit deeper, I'm going to keep prodding and probing, get a bit more, because it sounds like it's been tough for you.
It's deep enough to have thoughts that you don't want to be having.
Wow. Okay.
And you can, you know,
Yeah,
you
we can
know
read.
what that means.
Yeah.
And there is a difference between having a plan and having an ideation of something occurring. But it was, and a lot of what I'm able to say today is as a result of these things, and also the life that I've had and what I've learnt and the people I've spent some time with and those sorts of things. You said something before which is really interesting, and it's definitely on my notes around being in your head versus in the real world. And there's this phrase about, are you living behind your eyes or in front of your eyes? And what that is really about is judgment or fear of judgment. And it permeates a lot of the questions we might come on to. So I don't want to kind of reveal too much right now, but there is a difference between being so self-observing that you cannot connect with the other person because the agenda on your mind is your own, how you're being perceived, what they're thinking of you. Are they going to like you? Are they going to say something that sounds stupid? That kind of thing, as opposed to being in front of your eyes, which is, I'm not judging myself anymore. My camera angle has completely changed.
Yeah.
And I'm in the moment with you, if that makes sense. So where do we want to take it? We can talk. Do you want to talk confidence, composure, that kind of thing? Or do you want to go somewhere else first?
I'll ask a question if I may, and then we can move on with regards to how this is also attached to financial planning, financial planners, and talking to clients as well. Because I think the market has moved on, but it's obviously been a very tough time. Did you share these thoughts and experiences to people who were close to you, or did you hold them inside? How honest were you with the people who were closest with you? Because I think people struggle sometimes really opening up, and it's surface level. Because we always say, I'm okay, yeah, I'm fine, I'm a bit. But I guess being truly honest with even just one person, I think it's quite hard to find. So how open were you?
Some people might see it as a sense of bravery, but I think when you stop or you begin to learn that a lot of this is underpinned in childhood, and a career-defining moment, good or bad, for example. In fact, the way in which we make decisions as adults and our thought processes as adults are all a function of what we had to do to survive as kids. So I'm going to go off on a slight tangent. There's this thing called the childhood development triangle. In psychology and this kind of stuff, there's so many triangles. Triangles make up just so much stuff. But if you can consider, you've got friends, rewards, and safety. So they're the three sides of the triangle. And these are the thought patterns and the actions that you learn as a child to either get friends or keep friends. So the telltale joker in the class, that's a strategy. To make people like you.
Yes.
Right. Safety might be, I need to really understand my parent or parents' emotions to know whether I should talk or not. So for some people, safety is, what do I need to do to not get beaten? Okay, so we're going to go deep. And the other side of that triangle is, what do I need to do, or what do I see as a reward? Is a reward a hot dinner, or is it a pat on the back, or is it a big gold sticker? That kind of thing. So it's quite a deep concept, that, but nevertheless, I think it's 100% true that you learn these decision patterns, and as a kid, it's what is necessary to get you through childhood. But you don't recognize them. And in adulthood, you're still making those same thought processes and patterns, and it doesn't typically serve you very well.
So is it subconscious then?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Because if you think about the neuroscience, particularly around the brain is a pattern-seeking machine. So this is why things like, have you heard of apophenia or maybe pareidolia? Pareidolia is when you might see the face of Jesus in toast.
Yes, I've heard of that. Yeah.
So
that comes up a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Or you might see a rabbit in a cloud, for example. It's this. It's just
I often do, but yes,
quite. That would be your 60-hour fast, basically.
Yeah,
it's probably
72.
72 is probably that. But your brain is a pattern-seeking machine, and what I think I want people to understand is that your brain will always prioritize what is familiar and not what is best. Because if it recognizes something that's happened before, it knows I survived that before. That's what this is. I can survive it again. So you'll always be pulled to the familiar. It might even be the recreation of pain in a weird way, but that's what your brain is going to default to.
Is it like a safety mechanism then? Does it pull you back into that safety zone that your brain recognizes that?
Exactly.
Okay.
Because if you can think about this as a mantra, if it, how's the best way to explain it? Maybe we'll come back to it.
Okay.
I'll be able to recall it from my mind at some point in the conversation when it's probably not needed, but we'll come back to that.
Yeah. Have you always been interested in human behavior?
Yeah. Yeah. There's no denying that in my early career, like a lot of people in their early careers watching this, for example, will be looking for some kind of edge, some kind of differentiator. And I don't think there's any shame in wanting to do that as a strategic kind of thing. But for me personally, behavior has always been important because it's how I navigated the world as a kid. And when you have to grow up sooner than you're ready, it really messes with your brain. So it is a safety mechanism because it is what's familiar. So you've survived it.
I guess the question that springs to mind, and I'm going to ask it because it's there, is what was your childhood like then?
You know, when people say they grew up poor, it happened to a lot of people. But what people who truly grew up poor, and it's not just about financial, when you grow up poor, you also know, but you never voice that you also grow up cold and you grow up dirty. And that is not an easy thing to reconcile as a kid and then take into adulthood. So childhood was, and you know me well enough by now to know that this is not a pity-seeking exercise. I'm really not requiring anybody's pity. I suppose it's sad in some respects how people who've been through trauma, particularly in childhood, can describe it so dispassionately, and the person hearing it is thinking, Jesus, that's fucking awful. But that's, it's just how you learn to cope, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it wasn't wholly awful, but it was pretty tough. And we'll come on to some profiling bits, I know, later on. It's helped me understand my core needs and their approval. So when you're not approved of as a kid, either because your family's not around, or dad's not around, or dad doesn't give a whatever, it causes this need for approval. And so we'll dig into that when we come to that bit. It's actually quite fascinating, and you start to stop judging. I think that is such an important underpin. And again, for people watching, there's a phrase I really like, okay, which is, there's something about that guy I don't like about myself.
Yeah, I've heard similar.
And what is the truth behind all of this is that the way in which we judge other people is a big part of that is something we want to conceal, some shame we're concealing within ourselves. So if you judge somebody for being really loud and obnoxious, there'll be a part of you that is maybe jealous, but thinking, I wish I was a bit more, didn't give a shit. And when you go through some of this stuff, as I have, just life and also what I've been learning over the last few years, one of the biggest underpins is that you learn to stop judging, because you stop judging yourself first, and that is absolutely crucial. So this judgment piece is really important. There'll be people watching this who feel such a sense of judgment. It will be debilitating, and they won't necessarily know it. So what will happen is people will seek all the symptoms of being happy and confident and composed and all of this kind of stuff without realizing that the cause is hidden under all of this judgment and shame.
Talking of judgment, which I wrote a post last week on it. Classic. So
and your posts.
Yeah. I saw a LinkedIn post by a financial planner who, it was a very provocative post on how he had a dislike for recruiters, which is one of the businesses that I own and love dearly. The point that he made, which was the sort of unsolicitation and business development and the nonsense, it was a very good point. But I felt that the post went too far with basically just almost categorizing a whole industry of just awful people. And the old me would have reacted in a defensive nature. Because I think there was a part of me that still feels that I am not worthy enough to have conversations with financial planners. I'm not chartered status. And it pulled on that little bit, which I felt I needed to react. And the old me would have done, and I would have done something very cutting or whatever. Where I am now, it was more about a reflection on that piece to say, actually, he has a point, but rather than judge him, try and understand and discern the roots of it, and don't add to the noise. And actually then just try and raise your own professional standards. But there was still that part of me that I think it was, I'm not worthy enough. And I felt judged. And I think that's why a lot of people react.
It's a wound that hasn't healed. And as a consequence of that, if you have a scar, it's kind of done, isn't it? The wound is finished. It's in the past. But if you've got a wound, then it's still always susceptible to being jabbed at and opened. And so I commend you for saying that, and I've seen the evolution of you over the years to not that you were particularly judgmental before, but I can see where you're coming from. You'd be like,
oh yeah, keyboard warrior,
right? Exactly. The fascinating thing about that is because I commented on your post, as did lots of other people, and at the time, I had no idea about this other post. So I didn't know who you were talking about. You just shared that this was a narrative that you had seen. And I was like, oh, Jesus, and I made some joke. And then I also said at the end about, as you said, understanding and not judging. You're trying to get to the root of it. Maybe it's unfair to talk about the individual, but he identified himself by responding to everybody's posts. And that's somebody that clearly felt backed into a corner. And there's an animal profiling chart that we can use, which is kind of meant for kids, but actually is quite a good way of being able to ascribe or assign particular animal identities to people, which helps you understand why they act the way they act. And so this individual, for example, may be something like a chihuahua. So, when they're backed into a corner, they are going to, exactly. But they're feeling judged and scared, and probably even feeling powerless. so that they might have a strength and power need. So I don't know this individual.
No, I don't know this individual. But the irony was it was about, it wasn't about judging him.
Right.
That was the point.
Yeah.
And I saw some comments on Saturday night and I thought, I'm leaving it. Because the whole point is discernment and not adding to the noise. And I felt if I'm going to go back into this and say, well, actually, it was my reflection on that, how I felt and how I choose now to live, rather than a retelling of his own story.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. I think he felt backed into a corner. I can understand that. But again, that's the whole point, understanding why people react the way that they do.
Yeah.
Still think he had a very valid point. Don't agree with what was said, but I think there are different ways to react to it.
We've got this thing, haven't we, where we can't separate the identity of a person with something that they do. As in, if we like somebody, it's like we have to like everything they do and say.
Yeah.
Because you can't like somebody and disagree with them, God forbid.
But that's like LinkedIn though, isn't it?
Yes.
You just get the happy clappers.
Yes.
And they just applaud and like everything.
Yes.
And I think, I don't
yes.
really agree with that.
And we've all been there.
Yeah.
Like we've all been there.
I think we all do it, maybe because we want acceptance to be part of something, which is how we started the conversation.
Yeah.
To be liked.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a fundamental, it's actually a limiting belief. And maybe we can talk about that, but this, people talk conceptually about limiting beliefs and they really don't go anywhere near deep enough. Like there's this sense that limiting belief is, I can't do a thing. But limiting belief is way deeper than that. So, for example, people watching this might be self-sabotaging themselves because they grew up to have this belief that having money, for example, means you're an arsehole. And only idiots are wealthy. And money is evil, actually. And if you dig down to the soil in which all of these beliefs sit, that's the way to really expose them. And being liked actually was one of mine. And really what that means is, if I'm not liked, then I'm not worth anything. And it causes you to act in ways that are not always in your best interest. So that was an interesting experience of your post on LinkedIn, and I wholeheartely agree. You can't judge somebody you don't know. You can judge what they said.
Yeah.
And there's also this other sense of judging doesn't necessarily mean you're ascribing some kind of value to it. It's analyzing, isn't it?
Yeah.
As opposed to making a value judgment.
Yeah. But I also think everything is so binary these days. I don't know if you feel the same, but I've started to realise I can just see the patterns repeating. You vote Labour or Conservative, and one's going to change the world, and the other one isn't. The other one gets in, and it's just it's almost like an illusion. This illusion of choice, like Republic and Democrat, but I just feel we are conditioned to be in a tribe. You have to be on this side, or you have to be on this side. But I think there's more that connects both. But it's almost, you've got to make a choice. Are you on the right or on the left?
Yeah.
And that's it. But I just think this is how society is now, and social media, for all of its great stuff, is terrible.
It's way more bad than it is good.
Yeah.
Social media.
Yeah.
It's the devil.
I don't think we're ready for it. I think we've just got whiplash.
We, people have no real comprehension about how powerful social media is. And if if one thinks that you're immune to the influence of social media, you're an idiot. This brain cannot compete with $1 trillion machine. It just cannot. And this tribal thing is really interesting. This is becoming common parlance now, isn't it? About being part of a tribe. And there is some lots of evolutionary truth about this. Yeah. And we have evolved to exist within a much smaller number of people than we currently exist as part of, because of this falseness of social media. So yeah, it's a problem. I don't think I've been on Instagram, for example, since about 8 years, maybe. The only social media I do use is YouTube. Maybe LinkedIn, if you think of it as social media, but nothing else.
So those are the two main platforms.
Yeah. This binary thinking, I think you're onto it. This is absolutely right. It came up in one of your other podcasts talking about it. I don't think it was you actually, talking about leadership and can it be, is it innate or can it be learnt?
Yes.
And just the phrasing of the question is a binary thought, isn't it? Is it one or the other? It's not. And the same principle as you say, you can vote for a certain party and disagree with something they do or say. This is the power of cognitive dissonance. So you make a stand, and it's identity politics all the time. And you make a stand and you say, I'm the kind of person that aligns with this tribe.
Yeah.
And it feels incredibly uncomfortable to do something against that stated identity.
Yeah.
You can weaponize cognitive dissonance, by the way.
Yeah. How so?
By making you agree that you're a certain kind of person in a certain kind of tribe, and that the opposite of that is something that you wouldn't do, would you? And because you've made this identity agreement, you will look at the opposite. If I don't want you to have a certain reaction or thought process, I will make it a feature of the other side. And people will fight to their death to maintain an identity.
It's weird, isn't it? It's like we're being manipulated.
We are.
Yeah.
We are. God, don't get me started on conspiracy theory stuff. I'm not a particular conspiracy theorist, but we are being manipulated. It's a conversation for another time.
Well, maybe we'll do podcast number 2 on conspiracy theories, because they say the difference is between the truth and a conspiracy theory is about 18 months.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah.
It's getting shorter all the time, isn't it, basically?
It is, yeah. But I think people have lost a lot of trust. But I recognise it, and I can see what's happening. And I always look, again, going back to judgment, and just you can be respectful, you can be friendly with people who disagree with you, and it's all about understanding the context, and that's absolutely fine, but it's almost we have to be in a particular blue or red camp, and that is it.
Yeah. And what people think of you is none of your business. You can look at it that way.
Yeah. And I've come to the point, I don't care now.
Yeah, I know.
I use the phrase, and I say it to my kids as well, they're not going to come to my funeral.
No, good point.
So the people who are there are the ones who really deeply care about me.
Right. So
I might get about 5 or 6 people. Be a cheap do.
Oh God, I don't even want to know. But okay, yes.
I sort of say it, tongue in cheek, to say because my kids are 16 and 21, and they're growing up in this social media, and it's just stop worrying. Stop worrying about what other people think. You can't please everybody. As long as you've done what you believe is the right thing, then fair enough. And then learn, and then move on, because you can't go back.
You can't. And
all you have is now. And it's decisions that you make now, which are the important ones, because you can't go back in the past and change it. But
you can't.
Whatever's happened has happened, and it'll lead you to a certain point in your life. So I try and get them to understand and they're not really, my son's not on social media, but my daughter is. And I think for young girls, it's not a nice place to be, and there's no escape from this.
No.
We got to about 2022 from the financial planning world.
You're not going to let it go, are you?
No. Well, I think what I'm going to try and do is sort of square that circle.
Yeah.
Because where are you now? What are you doing now? And how would you describe yourself to a potential client?
I'm working again as a planner. First and foremost, all or nothing, a planner. I have no leadership responsibility. I have no management responsibility. Hopefully that changes, but it's in some respects nice to get back to just being a planner. And again, this whole judgment value sense, I'm not saying just like it's not as good as something else. I'm just saying you can be a fantastic planner and be a terrible leader. You can be a brilliant leader and a shit planner. So there's no judgment in that sense. I'm working within what in fairness is a decent organization with quality clients. Everyone will say this probably, but culturally quite strong, which is really not the norm. You and I have interacted before on this private equity money situation, ownership, and again, not for today, but it influences how a business sees staff and clients. So that's where I'm at. As a kind of separate thing to that, I'm still studying quite hard around neuroscience and behavior and influence and all of this kind of stuff, and what that might lead to, who knows. If I could set up my style consultancy business as well that we chatted about, maybe I might do that, but I'm full-time a planner.
Yeah. And how do you use what you're learning with clients?
It's interesting because I think with anything that somebody is good at, they're able to do it more naturally. So you're not having to use as much cognitive power to do a thing. So I'm a big car guy, and including racing, and I love Formula One, for example. And the best racers are those that are using, like 1% of their brain power to drive the car, and 99% strategically about what's going on in the race and that kind of stuff. Yeah. And that principle still holds, really. So probably the thing that I now use more frequently, and I'm aware of it, is to try and understand the emotions in somebody else and what's behind what's said. In fact, not just what's said, what's not said. And even more than that, if you think of this iceberg principle, a lot of people working at the top, but all the decisions are made down here. And so you'll hear some people say what's being said, then somebody else might say, yeah, but there's another level, isn't there, what's not being said. But there's probably this third level that not a lot of people know about, which is, why did they feel the need to say what they said? That's the bit to get to. I don't think it's helpful for people watching this to think in terms of tactics. I'm not saying you presented it as a tactic. What I'm trying to voice really is that they just have to be who you are. The stuff that you do has to be a natural part of who you are in order to correctly, ethically influence somebody. People have a real issue with the word manipulation. It's got a real negative connotation. But I think a good answer to that is, what's cognitive behavioral therapy? What's CBT? If it's not manipulating the way you think about something, or an osteopath, they're manipulating your
body.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So what you learn when you start to understand influence and behavior and all of that kind of stuff is that the ethics are always in the user and not the skill or the tactic. So the principle by which I would live is, and I might want to manipulate you, but if you could see inside my mind and you saw my intention and you agreed with it, that would be ethical. That's how I would define ethical manipulation.
Tell me a bit more about that then. Is that one of your diagrams that you wrote as well? Is that?
Not that one particularly, but it's this sense that people are uncomfortable with a bit like you said, sales.
Yeah.
People are like, I don't really sell, I advise or I help people. Well, you're still selling something, aren't you? It's this sense of manipulating somebody into making a decision. And people's default seems to be that that's a bad thing. But this is why how I'm sort of helping somebody view ethics and to get over the fact that you're trying to manipulate somebody, is that if they could see the intention you had for them and they want that, that is an ethical form of manipulation.
Yeah, I understand now.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does now, yeah, because I think the word manipulation,
right,
and I've had conversations with people who are in marketing, very similar to manipulate, but are you doing it because you want the sale in a particular area?
Yeah.
And again, we're going back to judgment and the amount of social media and the manipulation that goes on. But this is all about doing the right thing for the client and then going through the layers to help them uncover or ask or answer certain questions about themselves to get to that end point.
Yeah. And before we started recording, we were talking about maybe some of the things we might cover, and we started with my history and background and stuff, and I was like, that's the bit I don't really want to talk about. That's the worst bit. A lot of people are uncomfortable talking about themselves, which is ironic given the job that we do as planners, that you're really needing people to engage deeply with who they are. And age is no solution to finding your identity. You know, we're similar age, I guess maybe you're a bit
42. No, not. I have a big birthday this month.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Okay. So 43 then. Okay, got it.
Just flattery works.
Yeah, no, I know. This is
the best guess I've ever had.
This is the thing, isn't it? There's also a concept, and I talk a lot in concepts and principles, and I'm happy to unpack some of these as we go through. But one of the principles is, it sounds a little bit maybe like woo-woo, but it's where you speak from, you speak to. So if you're in a client scenario and you're feeling anxious, what you're saying and the way you're saying it is going to find the point of anxiety in them, and you're not going to get the truth behind the statements. There are some practical things you can do around that, around elicitation. So this is, I don't think today is about skills particularly, is it? This is more conceptual and philosophical and so on. But nevertheless, elicitation is getting information without asking any questions. And the more sensitive the information or the data you want, the less questions you should be asking.
Yeah. Can you give me an example of elicitation? Because I literally watched something the other day on one of my doom scrolls, which I tend to do. And they were talking about elicitation because they were ex-CIA.
Yeah, it's a big thing in this area. Yeah.
So can you sort of describe or give an example where elicitation...
Was it Lena Cisco who you had on?
It wasn't her actually, but it probably was a result of my conversation with her, because obviously YouTube catches the algorithm and then it takes you to people who talk in a similar fashion. But that was a great podcast on trust and truth, etc. And she's an interrogator. But during that podcast, I was just worried all the time whether she was reading me.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm trying to be authentic. It was a case of no, I'm being honest, but I became very aware, and it was how open should I be on this podcast? Because I don't lie, as in, you know, purposely mislead, but I guess I came a bit more conscious on that one, because you've got an interrogator that looks for all the subtle cues, that's got all the training. Yeah. But elicitation, just going back from a financial planning perspective, I know we're not talking about hints and tips and techniques, but on this one, I'd be interested, sort of questions you can use to gather the information.
So I'm going to put, what you said before was interesting about how you felt under, you didn't say the word attack, but you said you felt a sense that somebody's trying to get something from you, and you were worried about how you were acting. And that's partly because you knew you were talking to somebody that does that for a living.
I was aware.
Yeah, exactly. So you're naturally, your brain is going to put up the security guard that is like filtering everything it's saying. But the point about elicitation is that it feels like you volunteered the information as opposed to I've extracted it. So let's take two forms of elicitation. One would be provocative statements. So this is something like, I bet. So you say you're a planner, you go to somebody's house and there's look at the pictures, always look at the pictures. And you might say, instead of saying what was happening there, you might say, that looks like a really fun holiday. And they will volunteer information much more readily than you saying, was that a holiday?
And would they be honest? Would they say, oh, it was a terrible holiday?
Yeah.
So because you're eliciting that particular, you're framing that, they would then say, well, actually, it looks like it was a good holiday, but it was a night I was ill.
So what you can do is you can use, you can go, no way, really, 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 and they will keep going and keep going and keep going until the truth really does come out. Because you're right, somebody might start off and saying, yeah, wonderful, and you're like, wow.
Thanks.
Yeah. But people won't feel comfortable in that silence, and you'll see it when you train people and develop people. There is a real power in being able to use silence judiciously. So provocative statements is any kind of statement that will elicit a response from somebody. I bet is probably the best one. I bet that had to be a tough I bet that was fascinating. I wonder, I wonder how you must have felt. And people generally give you something
Give
back,
you the information.
as opposed to me saying, how did you feel?
Yeah.
Because that feels like an interrogation. Tell me how you feel about that. And people, I'm not saying don't use questions. What I'm saying, you got to work out when in the sequence of things to start using questions. And if there's something sensitive, then elicitation is generally much better. And the second form, if I just give you a second form, is correct it, or people's need to correct the record. So if you make a statement that I guess you know to be false, people will fall over themselves to correct it with the information that you need. So it could be as simple as, for a planner, I looked at the notes and you had £50,000 in the bank. And they're going to say, yes, no, it's 40, or no, it's 60. It's such a funny question, that one, isn't it? People have such a problem with it. They can ask all sorts of things about how you feel and all of that, but then it comes to how much money have you got? But anyway,
a metric.
Yeah, a metric.
A number.
But elicitation is really good, and you can hide it within more overt questions. And as long as you're doing it for the right reasons, which is to get the information on which you can help somebody and base your advice, then elicitation is extremely powerful. You could be in an Uber, let's say, and you could say to the driver, no questions. It's called the article technique. I was reading this article on LinkedIn the other day, and it said Uber drivers are the happiest employees of any taxi company. And what you're going to get is, no, it's this, it's this, it's this, it's this.
Yeah, the answer, the real answer.
Right.
Yeah. I think that Uber one was actually mentioned on the...
I wonder who it was you were watching then.
I don't know. I'm sure ex-CIA interrogator, but
There's quite a few, isn't there? Joe Navarro?
No.
Andrew Bustamante?
You do your research.
Ellie Pomporus?
I can't remember.
Anyway.
It's one of those like shorts that come up and you think, that was quite interesting.
But it's fascinating.
I think...
There you go.
Yeah, I bet. I bet it was fascinating.
But it's true. I just said it's fascinating, and you started to give the information.
It is. So I find this all fascinating. The bridge that I will try and make is from a financial planning perspective. The role as a financial planner is evolving. It has evolved. But how do they incorporate this behavioral psychology into it? Because you're a financial planner, you've got all the qualifications, long list of letters, and now you're also looking at neuroscience, psychology. It's like, how can you bridge that to be the best financial planner that you can be? Do you need to be learning this, or can you just function as in fact find, tell me about, you've got 50 grand in the bank, tell me about what you want to be doing in retirement? Can financial planners still function in that way, or is it a case of the way that the world is going, there does need to be an evolution in terms of how we generally interact and get on with our clients?
I like your question, which is a different way of...
It was a long question.
I didn't say it was. It was a long one. I'm trying to pick out the bits from it. But yes, in simple terms, yes. It depends how good you want to be. If you are... And this goes back to the difference between knowing and doing. There's the people that know a lot of stuff, and there's people who can do it. And they're different. And I'm not saying that people who know stuff aren't any good. I'm just saying that knowing and doing are very different things. So you can absolutely function as a planner in a arguably more transactional sense, where you're going through a script and a process, and sometimes you'll get somebody who's particularly open and happy to tell you, and other times you'll get somebody that isn't, and you won't get as good a result because you haven't got the skills to be able to expose them in a good way. It's as much about who you are as a person, which influences the other person, as the skills that you deploy. For example, like we said before, this sense of who you are is going to make the difference rather than what you do. And if you are a planner that has a greater degree of interest in the person, then you're going to want to work hard to understand yourself and then to be able to profile that other person and create this environment. People will say this all the time, but where you, if you're the client, even if it's a finite moment, you're feeling good in the moment and you're volunteering information and you trust that I'm going to deliver, or the planner is going to deliver the best thing for you. So one thing I'm going to call out, which I've seen it for years and years, and when I say I've seen things, what really I'm saying also is I've done them. Yeah. And then I've been able to see the error of my ways. So
you're not in judgments. You've been there, done it. Yeah.
Really, absolutely. Is people will work extremely hard to keep layering on qualifications. If I just do this, if I just get to chartered, if I just become a fellow, everything else will sort itself out. And that is a recipe for disaster. The reason people are putting these things on top is because they feel a sense of unease and lack of confidence. And they think that more letters, more qualifications is suddenly going to make them feel confident, and it won't happen.
Is that all the time that they're doing it because of a lack of confidence? Or could it be that they're confident but they just need the qualifications because the employer says?
Yeah, it's both. Again, it's this non-binary thinking. It can be both, but people watching this will know, particularly if you mentor other people or you're a mentee, they're excuses. This is no judgment. Yeah. They're excuses. If I do this, all this, and this, and this, and then I'm going to feel confident. Yeah. Somebody said it to me, a colleague who will remain nameless, was talking about selling a service or a product, and they wanted the product or the service to be better. And I hear that, but I know what that means is they don't feel comfortable.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I think I go back a long way to an earlier job, and one of the inspirations, I guess, behind this was because I fell into this trap. I was looking at, say, the top salesperson, and I'm thinking, they're shit. They don't know what I know. They're not fellow or chartered. They're this. And I gave no credence to the fact that they're the top salesperson because they have the best social skills, the best ability to read somebody, to influence somebody, confidence, charisma, all of those sorts of things. So yeah, you don't, it's not all the time. Nothing really is. The two words, isn't it, that I think I also teach people not to think in terms of or use is always and never. You're going to get yourself into trouble if you use those words too frequently. Always.
The bit that I want to dive into then and explore this is knowing yourself then. Because it seems, am I right in thinking, and this is not an elicitation, say already I'm like aware, I'm not trying.
That's great. It's working then.
Again, in life, in your career, building confidence, is it about truly understanding who you are as an individual? Is that the foundation before you can start to really appreciate the other things? And if so, how on earth do we start that journey?
Yeah, so there's a lot in that question. I'm going to pick up on something you said first, because I'd already written it down. And you, like almost everybody else, and again, I'm not holding myself out as, this guru, because I've learned it and I've done it wrong in the past. But many people, not all people, have been tricked into thinking that confidence is something that's built. And you even said, I think you said, build confidence. Yeah. And that's what most people will think. Over time, you build confidence. You do it enough times, you'll become confident. This is what I think everyone gets wrong. Most people get wrong about confidence is that confidence is revealed. So somebody might want to write this down. Confidence is what is revealed when the need to be somebody special dies.
Explain that.
Let's you and I go back to childhood. We're 3, we're 4, probably around that age. Do we care what people think about us at that point?
I would say no, because I don't really care about a lot at that age.
Do we unashamedly just ask for what we want?
Yeah.
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 And what happens, and we touched on it earlier about this sense of judgment, is over the years, people start to put armor on against social judgment. And that is what is blocking confidence. So confidence is not something that's built. Confidence is there and it's hidden behind a wall of shame, insecurity, all of those things. You lose the need to be seen as somebody special, and confidence is what is revealed.
That's quite deep, that. That's deep.
Yeah.
That's almost like somebody said to me that mental health, you are born healthy.
Right.
You're not born with anxiety,
right,
or stress. These are learnt or programmed, whatever your viewpoint is. So that's very similar then. So it's innate.
Yeah.
The confidence is there.
Yeah.
But things happen to you in childhood which will erode it, or you put armor around it to protect yourself.
Correct. And this is it's ego, isn't it? Which people have a real bad reputation with, and you kind of need to have a reputation with your ego and understand what it is, which is basically your best defense mechanism. It's the same reason why public speaking is rated like the thing that people fear the most in the world, isn't it? What's the saying? There's a saying, isn't there, that you'd rather be in the coffin than read the eulogy or something.
I can understand that one. Yeah.
And so you get to the point where standing in front of people and saying something stupid has no impact on your sense of self-worth, and what radiates out is confidence.
Mm.
So it's not the speaking, it's the fear of judgment. You're standing in front of your tribe, and as thousands, hundreds of thousands of years ago, you did that and you went against the tribe leader, you're going to get killed. This I love what you said though about being innate. And I think it is worth acknowledging that you can be born with propensities to things, and you can be born with trauma through parents, grandparents. You can inherit phobias, which is mental. I read a thing on LinkedIn that if somebody has trouble sleeping, their ancestors were more likely to be cattle farmers than grain farmers, because they had to be on guard of their cattle.
Really?
This could be 5, 6, 7 generations
ago. Yeah.
Yes, it's encoded into our DNA.
I was going to say, it's encoding the DNA. That's incredible, isn't it? We are quite messy, aren't we, Ant?
Speak for yourself.
No. I think I'm reflecting now on what you said, and I think it's the fear of judgment which has held me back for so long. And I said to my business, I said, I had a bit of an awakening. I'm like, I don't care anymore, and I don't want you to care, because I can all see that they are holding themselves back.
Right.
I was talking to I talk to a lot of people. I keep saying that, but
they talk back though.
Yeah, they are real people. Yeah. But I was talking to somebody, and we were talking about training, and we've invested in training over the years. And I said, it's not because there's a lack of information out there. There's loads of information, and we train people and they understand it. I think we need to move it back with regards to unblocking people, because it is them who's preventing them from taking whatever steps that they need to. And it's different because they understand the theory.
That's right.
So I'm looking at it now and thinking the next sort of investment in training will be more about unlocking the potential in them. Mm-hmm. What's holding them back, and going deeper with them, rather than putting a training course on better data management or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's taken me a long time to realize that as business owners, we just do the same thing. you see investment in training, well, we must do that, and we do that, but we're not treating the actual cause.
Right.
It's the symptoms,
Yeah.
you know, and that's fine. But I think when I talk to my colleagues, they are sharing more stories about how they feel, imposter syndrome, judgment, fear, anxiety, stress. That's not a training course. That to me is, you need to bring in the help that will help them understand themselves, this is really in tune with what we're talking about, because it's about knowing yourself.
Yeah. Sounds like you've been on somewhat of a journey.
It's so corny though, isn't it? When everyone says you've been on a journey, I think it's just life. And every challenge is there because you learn from something.
Yeah.
And I think I became the MD 4 or 5 years ago. I never felt like the MD. Now I feel because I'm living how I want to live, and therefore talking to my colleagues about the stresses and strains and just the realities.
Do you know what? I bet that's been transformative for them.
I think the people who've known me for many years, like James, he is definitely...
Hello, James, by the way.
Yeah. Hello, James. You should be working or watching this.
Yeah, should.
Unless it's your own time. And I think people who've worked with me along have seen the change, and they've seen me open up more. But that's also allowed them to open up to me. And then you find a deeper connection. And then you get rid of this periphery nonsense.
Right. That's right.
Like, how are you? I'm fine, yeah. And you go a bit deeper and you talk about the family, and then you talk about some of the stresses and anxieties, because we all have them. So I think they have seen a difference in me, and it's nice to run a business where it's not just about metrics.
It must be wonderful.
It's hard because you try and get the balance of living in a world, as you know, we can discuss metrics.
I'm laughing because there's 3 elicitation then, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
What was the third one then?
I bet, and it sounds like...
Oh, right, okay. I'm on it.
So I'm teasing you.
Natural.
But, natural. Yeah. But there's a book by an author called Nuke Sanchez, and it's about ego. It's not an amazing book, but there's a quote at the beginning which picks up a lot of what you've just said, which is, how different would we be to others and ourselves if all negative thoughts, fears and beliefs did not exist in our mind?
Is that like your Carl Jung quote?
Yeah, I love Carl Jung.
Yeah, because that came up about, there's a quote, something about unless you realise you act on your subconscious to be conscious, then
This is the principle of shadow work, which is, yes. My favourite, actually, we can outquote each other, but one of my favourite...
you'll win on that one.
Maybe.
You'll win.
Only because I wrote them down. One of my favourite, genuinely favourite Carl Jung quotes is, and it speaks to everything that we've covered so far, is he who looks outside dreams, he who looks inside awakens.
I've never heard that one. That's
I love
good.
it. I love it. This is get to know yourself, stopping the fear of social judgment and being okay with being socially injured, being okay with saying something that somebody disagrees with or thinks you're an idiot for, because it doesn't change how you feel about yourself. And they, as have I, even though we've only met each other for the first time in person today, have seen the difference with which you approach things by shedding all of that nonsense around judgment and fear and shame and all of that.
And I think that is so hard to do.
It's not easy.
It's not easy. Do you think it's because we are at that sort of similar age, time of life?
42, 43.
Where we reflect, or did our parents go through the same thing as well? The awakening I've had is that's just a natural course. We all go through it because you start to see patterns and you start to become more self-aware. You become aware of your life, that it won't go on forever, because when you're young you just think you're going to live forever. It's great. And when you're a bit older you start thinking, actually there'll be one day that I won't be able to go to the gym, or I won't be able to play football, but the very last game that I play. So you become aware of your mortality, and then you reflect more. It's almost the case of youth is wasted on the young.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at it
Which
now.
only an old person can say, by the way. But
and I'm looking at it and going, what would I tell my past self?
Yeah.
But I think this living in fear, living in judgment, where I've been, and it's not just me, it's so many people as well, it just holds us back. It's a shame.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a shame that we almost come to this, conclusion now. So what can we do with that? Do we help other people? Can we mentor people? Because this is where I feel my purpose comes in.
Yeah.
To show people that don't fear judgment.
Yeah.
Don't fear what people are going to say, because they'll say bad things anyway.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
Just move on. So is that our responsibility now to move this forward?
I guess it is. Vicariously or by you can develop yourself so much by developing others at the same time, because you're really listening about what you're saying and you're seeing the impact of the things that you do. And it is easy to say, do this, don't do this. And if people could do it, they would just have done it, wouldn't they? You wouldn't get to your 40s, 50s, whatever, and still be thinking, shit, I need to stop, worrying about this, that, and the other. If it was that easy, then we all would have done it. One of the things that underpins composed stroke confident people is there's a sense that they all have, which is whatever happens, first of all, they have a generalized expectation of positive outcome. Generally speaking, is all going to be all right. That underpins confidence wholly. And they also, not in these words necessarily, but it encompasses, it's all part of life, or this is part of life. So whatever happens is par for the course. And it kind of does go into the composure pendulum, which maybe we might talk about. But we owe it to ourselves if we find ourselves, say we're at an event, and we're the life and soul of the event, and we're this and we're that, and we're happy and we're bubbly. And then you go home and you're in the bathroom, you take all your clothes off because you're going to have a shower, and you look in the mirror and you think, I fucking hate you. Like, I don't like what I see.
Yeah.
If you have those moments, or the voice is so strong that says, you're bullshitting, then you owe it to yourself to... It's about permission, and think what I came to learn was that nobody's coming to give me permission. People can wait for their whole life to be given permission to act a certain way, and it's not coming. Nobody's coming to save you, which might sound a bit nihilistic, but it's freeing. This I could tell you a short story about confidence and permission, and this is something that somebody told me. Let's say you go to you're going to an Hermes store, super expensive, and you walk in and you will feel a sense of judgment. Most people will. You'll see the face on the person looking to help you, and you think they're judging you. That you're thinking, they know I can't afford this. They know I'm not in the right place. I don't feel right. I don't feel right in here. You can really picture that. But if I gave you like my unlimited credit card, and I said, we've got a client coming in and I want you to get a Birkin bag, not that you can just walk in and buy one, and I gave you that credit card and you had it in your pocket, how differently would you feel when you walk into that store?
Well, there is context to that answer. I guess the old me would have been great. I can spend now. The new me would be like, doesn't matter. Why am I even here?
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think if somebody said, there's a credit card, off you go. Yeah, great. I feel.
Think of it from a permission perspective.
Yes.
I'd
get permission.
And so you're going to look at the faces of the people, that work in the store, and you're not going to see them as judgmental. And it could be a bloody library card, and they don't know that.
Yeah.
They don't know that. So this permission piece is really permissive. It's important, but nobody's coming to give you permission. Not you, but anybody. So if you're waiting for somebody to say you can act in a certain way, or you can think that things are all going to be okay, generally, then you'll be waiting till you're old and it's too late.
So is this just the ego and the mind then playing?
Yeah.
So just go and do it.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're not fearful of the consequences of it going wrong.
Yeah.
And ego, one thing that I know has helped a lot of people when they think about ego, and it's helped me, is because it is what it is, really. It's like your 8-year-old self. If you look down and you were holding a hand and little 8-year-old you was looking up at you saying, I don't think you should go on stage. They might laugh at you. And as an adult, you'd be like, I got this. I'm an adult now. It's okay. That's a good framework with which to view ego. It's there to protect you, but it doesn't need to protect you from the thing. You don't need protecting from the things it's protecting you from anymore as an adult.
Goes back to your earlier point, doesn't it, about protectionism?
Right.
The safety.
Yeah.
But I think the power of the mind, the more I think where I'm going on my own journey, terrible phrase, is I've become more spiritually aware.
Yeah.
So the practice of meditation, to quieten the mind, to let it go free, to listen to the ego. But sometimes I feel trapped because I'm in the sort of data mind I also have, which is seek reason and evidence.
Yeah.
And then I'll start looking at behavioral science,
or
quantum mechanics, which I don't even understand the word. And sometimes it can be a bit of a conflict. So I almost think I have to leave one behind. So I'm sort of going through the spiritual side, which isn't a case of I found God. It's just finding yourself.
Yeah.
And I think if you can find yourself and understand who you are, you become powerful. Because I think it is ourselves and our mind and our egos that hold us back from truly achieving purpose, happiness, whatever it may be, or joy.
If you, again, for everybody watching, if you outsource your identity to somebody else, it will always be a hostage negotiation. And so what you're saying is you've decided who you are. You're not allowing other people to dictate it to you, because your sense of value and worth is about you following your path. And yes, I know about the journey stuff. It's like a bit of a trope now, isn't it?
We all say it.
And I've heard people say to a client, tell me about your journey, and you're like, maybe 1 in 100 weirdos you'll get who will just tell you about their journey, but 99 other people are going to go like, what are you on about?
They won't.
No. Some people don't even realize because they're so in their own heads that but it does come, like you said, and I do agree, this sense of mortality, because at some point you're not going to be around, are you?
No, physically.
Your legacy will live on long into the years. But I think that embracing the spirituality and it not being a religious thing is really important. I think that is there's way more meaning probably in spirituality than there is in hard science, because hard science changes all the time, doesn't it?
Does,
we discover new stuff.
100 years ago, we thought the Milky Way was the furthest galaxy. Now we learn a lot more. So, but I think sometimes we're driven by, and we had this through COVID, the science tells us this. So we're, again, being fed a narrative about the science, but science can't even explain why we're here.
No.
There's just so many unknowns.
No.
But I think the spirituality side is just to understand me, get to know who I am. And if you ask that question, who am I? That's a deep question.
Yeah.
So if you were to ask, who is, Anthony Flynn?
Yeah.
Anthony Flynn, the financial planner, or take away the name, take away the title. Who are you? And I think you reflect on that, and you start to think and act differently, and that manifests itself in the business, in your life, in your relationships, and you become a little bit calmer. You start to flow. You
strip out the role stuff. There's a lot of people deriving their identity from the role. Who are you? And they'll answer with the role that they do. I'm a financial planner, for example, and I am a financial planner, but I don't. It's not doesn't define me as a person the same as you being a business owner, for example. Doesn't define who you are. And this spirituality thing, it's partly, yes, mindfulness. I agree completely. It's there's an element of gratitude and enjoyment. In fact, maybe we don't get onto authority. Maybe we do, but there's basically 5 components of authority, as I would posit to you, and 2 of those are gratitude and enjoyment. And gratitude is being able to zoom right out to be grateful for this pen that I used, not just because it's a pen that I used, but somebody in a factory somewhere put things together, and then something was grown in the ground to enable that to happen. And it sounds silly, but this ability to really zoom out and see it from a completely different height is important. And enjoyment is something that I have lacked for a lot of my life, but I've come to understand that enjoyment is really quite persuasive. It's attractive. It transfers to other people, a bit like true confidence, actually. If again, people watching, if you've been around somebody that acts confident, but you feel small, that is not confidence. That is fake. That is fake. True confidence it transmits to the other person. It gives you permission to act authentically.
I think it's quiet, a quiet confidence, rather than the projection of "look at me, how good I am."
It's fascinating because one of the questions you asked was around not a fear per se, but it's stopping acting confident from straying into, I think you said, performance. And I think it's how I would have, up until a few years ago, would have also have seen confidence. I know I would have seen it as arrogance, and it would have been really distasteful to me. But you start to understand and realize, and you'll see it, you won't unsee it now. This sense of true confidence doesn't shout, makes you feel good as opposed to make you feel small or stupid. That's true confidence.
And I think when you meet people like that, hold on to them.
Yeah.
Because they're good people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just talk to me about the Composure pendulum. And then I'm conscious of time. I do want to talk about your freedom series as well.
Okay.
That was interesting.
Yeah.
But the Composure pendulum, again, I was reading something and it talked about a pendulum, and if you swing one way, the pendulum's got to swing the other way. So just try and stay in the middle. Now we've just had a very strong performance period in the business, and it's been a record month, and everyone was celebrating. And I looked at it and I thought, I have to say, it didn't mean anything. What I enjoyed was people doing well, rather than the number or the metric.
Yeah.
So I felt that my pendulum was just in the middle.
Yeah.
Just stay there. I celebrated in success, well done. But it also means if we have a bad month, I'm not then going to go really negative. But that was my sort of, pendulum moment. What do you mean by the Composure pendulum?
This has been absolutely transformative. And if there's one thing, I think everything I've said is important, but if there's one thing that people take away, it's the Composure pendulum, and it has the power to change somebody's life. I truly believe that. And how this works is that I think truly like a pendulum, like in a grandfather clock, but at one end you've got posturing, and at the other end you've got collapse. And right in this middle, this razor's edge right in the middle is true composure. So if you picture the person who is overtly loud, peacocking, chest out, this is posturing.
Yeah.
This is fake. And the person that perspective is, if I shrink myself, you'll feel a bit better, so you can be a bit bigger, and everything's a bit shit, and I'm it's just that sense. These are the two extremes, with the true composure in the middle. And Back to the Future is a good example. So Biff Tannen, isn't it? He starts off posturing, and he ends up completely in collapse, doesn't he? Because of everything that goes on in the film. This as a concept will change people's lives, because what you're trying to do is recognize when you're getting pulled out of one way or the other by stuff that goes on in your world and your life, and the degree to which you get pulled from this perfect equilibrium in the middle called composure. The issue with both of these extremes is that they're both rooted in insecurity. They're both about insecurity, posturing, and collapse. And they're both concealing how somebody's really feeling. So you can apply this as a principle to so much stuff. So your example before was perfect, because you didn't get pulled into this posturing where you're like,
look at us,
we're this, we're that, well, aren't we amazing? And when you do have a bad quarter or year or whatever, you're not suddenly down in this collapse and you're thinking, oh shit, we're terrible, it's never going to get any better. You just stay really composed. And I think composure is such an important underpin to being able to influence and persuade people. It's good for yourself, but it's also good if you want to have authority around other people. So this composure pendulum is absolutely fascinating. And if you think humans...
Is it also based on neuroscience? And yeah, because I looked at it from, a spiritual perspective about balance. It's the same thing, isn't it?
It's completely the same thing.
It's parallel lines that we seem to be on. I look at it from a spiritual perspective, and that pendulum just keep, like the river, just keep on flowing.
Yeah, you take the rough with the smooth, roll the punches, all of those kind of things. Yeah. But composure is as a way of acting, not as a tactic, but as a tenet of who you are as a person.
Yeah.
Somebody incorrectly coined that as being controlling, and I disagree with them, because controlling is somewhat artificial, I think. So you can use these, and what happens is humans will think in terms of opposites. Simple example: if you're cold, what do? You want to get hot. If you're hot, what do? You want to get cold. And if you're living your life at one end, let's say it's this end, which is the collapse end, and you start to become sick of the fact that you're in this collapsed mindset. If you're over here, what looks like the solution, it's right over here, isn't it? The complete opposite is posturing. You bypass composure completely and you go from one extreme to the other.
You're faking it.
You're faking it, and you'll see this in self-help sales conference stuff. You know, if somebody's selling a sales program, for example, what you'll see is, I don't know, 70%. Let's just say 70% of people are living in this collapsed mindset, and the people doing the selling are selling this. They're selling this, and to somebody here, that looks like the solution, and it's not the solution, because you're still faking it. You're still not truly composed. And wherever you are on those extremes, you're not being authentic, which is something we talked about earlier.
So how do we get in the middle then?
It's a state of mind, isn't it? It's this generalized expectation that things are going to be okay. But
this is something you've learned, isn't it, recently? This is one of the most empowering things that you've had. So is there a technique that you use to keep that pendulum in the middle?
Do you know what? People will not imagine how powerful naming stuff, writing stuff, getting it into the light is. Just being aware of something. And if you're aware of it enough and you repeat that, and this is a neuroscience point, your reticular formation will start to take care of it for you, because it will start to say, okay, Ant thinks this is important. I'm going to filter stuff so that I show him or her what's important. So remember composure as a consequence or a byproduct, as opposed to, so they're the symptoms. They're just the naturally occurring symptoms because you are at one with yourself. Maybe that's a bit of a...
No, I get that. Yeah,
does that make sense? And you apply that principle to so many things, it will change your life. You'll work with people who a deal won't come off.
Yes.
And they'll be straight over
Absolutely.
there. I can't, this is terrible. I'm never going to
catastrophe.
Recover. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. And you'll recognize it from now on in, you'll see it all the time, and you'll be able to encourage people, and people watching this will be able to talk to themselves about just this perfect razor's edge. It doesn't mean you never move. It just means that you're aware of when you're being pulled one way or the other, and you get back to this equilibrium, like you said.
Yeah. So it is about an awareness state. Just be aware.
Yeah.
But don't get dragged into either or.
Yeah. Because both are fake.
Yeah.
Both are concealing what you really feel.
Yeah.
Posturing, you don't feel truly confident. You've got to, the only way you feel confident is you make other people feel shit.
Yeah. Got to be really authentic. Before I get onto the Freedom series, is there anything that you want to discuss or explore? Because we've covered quite a few topics, haven't we? We've gone into a deeper level, which I'm glad about.
Likewise.
Really, because it's not just talking about, I'm a financial planner and this is what I do. And hopefully it'll resonate with the audience that, you know, there are certain challenges that we face in life and we need to overcome them. Mm-hmm. And your story of what you are doing and where you are now and the person that you've become is a far better story than it would have been Anthony Flynn at Investec. Because that would have been surface level, or posturing, So actually, the conversation now becomes a little bit deeper, and then it's how you then work on yourself, because that will resonate with your clients. So.
Well, that requires you as the host to be willing to go there first and foremost, which you have done, and you've demonstrated in other ones. And I know today our chat today has gone deep, and I truly hope that I know it will resonate with many people. I can't think what else that we ought to. And we haven't covered profiling particularly, but I know maybe the skills bit is another.
Should we do the skills bit?
Yeah.
So we'll do the skills bit in the follow up.
Yeah.
But this is more about.
So I do get a follow up.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was going to tell you though, I operate a dynamic pricing model. So the more people that need it and want it, the more my fee goes up. So I just thought I'd
you could project that. Yeah, absolutely.
Because at the moment I'm paying you basically. So
very nice.
Yeah,
very nice.
Yeah.
But no, we will do a follow up definitely. Because I think this is it's an area of interest to me, and I look at guests as in. That I find interesting, that I want to have a conversation with, because that is how I learn. And if we can help one or two other people think, oh yeah, I can recognize that, and maybe I do need to work on myself, and maybe not having to do the qualifications, because that's not really going to satisfy the emptiness that you'll feel when you get there. I think it's powerful rather than just a. And I'm not saying I do generic podcasts, because I don't, but these are interesting. Okay, well maybe we'll do the skills based.
Let's do that
side next time then, the practical side. Mm-hmm. But you did a Freedom series, was it about a year ago?
Yeah. And
I reread them. It's, you know, from a client perspective, where are you at? And I struggled with it a little bit. But what prompted you to write the series? What was behind it?
A lot of the articles, which are fairly short, that I write are in some ways cathartic, but it's not an indulgence. I don't do it purely for that. I'm doing it because I'm wanting to shine a light on the shadow that people are living in. Yeah. The Freedom series is interesting to me because it kind of butts up against the way in which we're regulated as planners. We are, or the regulator is obsessed with goals. And so much so that the delivery of advice is kind of manipulated, this time in a bad way, into satisfying a goal. And the goals typically, in my experience of working with clients over a long period of time, are, every planner will know this, you don't make them up, but you're kind of saying to a client, I've got to put something down that you want to achieve, and therefore I can prove that what I'm doing is going to achieve that. I think what what's behind the Freedom Series in particular is this sense that, again, common parlance is financial freedom, financial freedom. And I've come to understand that is selling, is a bit narrow-minded.
Yeah.
And as somebody, I guess, you said it yourself about identity and the freedom. I'm inferring that you say you feel a sense of freedom from having discovered who you are and your purpose. So you found identity, and that's important to you. But if you were my client and I was a financial planner, I can't put any of that in a report. I can't objectively justify your sense of finding yourself, your identity freedom. But it's been the catalyst that will open up a whole different direction of travel for you. So I think what I wanted to do for people is to highlight that there are other ways in which we're all seeking some kind of fulfillment, and financial is a small part of it. It might even be a gateway to something. And when you frame it, it's sometimes helpful for clients if you frame it in these terms. One or more is going to resonate a lot more. Geographic is really underrated, I think. It's not necessarily the most common, but this, if you've had a life where your time and your location was dictated to you for a long period of time, you might well develop a geographic freedom, which is just this sense that you can go wherever you want, whenever you want. I can work here, I can work there, I can live here, I can live there. That's quite important for some people. So I don't know if I've sold it yet, but what really it is about doing,
start, yeah.
Okay, good start, is just recognizing that there are non-financial / metric goals that people are striving for, and money might be the route to that, not the end goal. And it's not a two fingers up at the regulator by any stretch, but good God, is it difficult to have a spiritual relationship with a client, because you cannot put that in a report and justify it. And you've still got this sense as well from the regulator where you're so bounded by risk level, and there's this sense that if you can quantify what a return that somebody needs to maintain their lifestyle, if that's their goal, obviously people have more goals than that, then you only need to take the risk commensurate with that. And I think it's quite a negative mindset. I'm not saying throw caution to the wind. What I'm saying is, why should we stop people dreaming bigger? That's it.
I found it fascinating.
Didn't like it though.
No, I did like it.
Okay.
I did like it, yeah. No, because it makes it, from a financial planning perspective, the profession has moved from product-based advice.
Yes.
Where I see AI coming into the marketplace, it will do all of that at a touch of a button. It can do it quicker, faster. But that human connection piece is where I believe and hope that the profession will move towards and embrace. And I understand the regulator has to look at metrics and goals and whatever, but a measurement of success is also the ability to help and coach your client into being able to unearth the real reasons or the real aspirations and the real fears. We talked about elicitation. We talked about knowing yourself.
Yeah.
If you to do all of that, your client meetings will be so different, because they would be also just getting huge value from that. So I can really see where it's going. And I know there are a few people that have a very similar, mindset. But it's a shame that business is driven by P&L, EBITDA.
Yeah.
So what are you bringing in?
Yeah.
What's your cost? That's the problem. We need to get more. And maybe that is another conversation, on that, because I think it drives behaviours which aren't necessarily in line with who you may be as a financial planner, but the client as well.
Very diplomatically put. Yeah, I think the revenue thing is the reason we have an issue with recruitment in the profession. I've seen it from some of your other interviews, and it's definitely something we can get into. Not today. It's One thing I will leave people with, though, is if you undertake this kind of work, framework, mindset, all of that kind of stuff, don't do it expecting thanks. It's not the reason to do this, either for yourself or your client. And like every good therapist, I'm not a therapist, but I've had some experience with therapists. What every good therapist will say is that the client will never get to the end of a therapy session and go, I feel better. Do you know what? That's fixed me. It will be a month, 3 months, 6 months, a year down the line. Something will happen, and they'll never equate it back to the sessions you had as therapy. It will be some other thing. So the latency between what you do for a client and the point at which they really, truly, profoundly value it, you might not even be a planner anymore. So accept that, and accept that for what it is. You're not doing it for self-gratification. You're doing it for them.
I think that's a very deep point. Okay. Well, I think what we'll do, we'll draw this part to a close.
Sure.
I could talk for hours.
Yeah, likewise.
It's very interesting when you start to strip the layers out, what people are really like. And I've seen you change and transform, and it's great. And I'm glad to be a tiny, tiny part of seeing that. And definitely going to do another podcast. So it's been great to see you. I do appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I am very much in reflective mode.
Great.
I'm going to reflect on this because I've learnt, which is always good from a podcast.
I'm pleased.
But I'm going to ask you one final question.
Yes.
If I may.
Yes.
And this is my magic wand question.
I thought it might be.
You know it's coming. So I'm going to give you a magic wand, and this magic wand, you can have one wish and one wish only. And you can wish for anything. What would you wish for and why?
It's quite insightful, isn't it? The answers that people give. I didn't really think this one through too much, but the answer I'm going to give you is a wish. It's not two wishes, okay? It's kind of truncated. I wish that kids are allowed to be kids for as long as they need to be, and that none of them grow up thinking they're not worth anything.
That's a great answer. That's a great answer. I can see why you said that.
Right.
Anthony Flynn, financial planner, guru, spiritual guru, neuroscience.
Yes, style icon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Just get them all in there.
I have to say, you are a very good-looking man. They say you've said that. No, not you've said that. People
I've said that though.
Yeah, I know.
I haven't said it at all.
Ego. Really?
I really haven't said it. I think somebody have to work quite hard to make me really believe that. And I'm not saying that as a point of elicitation. But thank you.
It's like meeting you in person, yes. It's very good. Anyway, leave on flattery. Leave on a positive.
Love
but no,
that.
it's been a pleasure, and it's been my honour to have you as a guest today.
It's very kind. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.